You are listening to episode 112 on the Air Hug community. Hey, welcome everybody. If you are new here, and if you're not new here, welcome back. But if you're new here, I just want to give you the 411 on this podcast. This is the Air Hug Community Podcast, and you can also think of it as a midlife mojo discussion board. So in this podcast, we come together to talk about midlife. We talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, all the emotions. We talk about approaches for living better. We talk about all sorts of things. We bring in guests. And this is just something that was created as a need out of my business from Grateful Fitness of working with women. I wanted to have a place where we could come to talk about things further. And so this is the place. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. Let's get after it. Hey, welcome back to the Air Hug community. It is just me again today. And I have something I just want to chat about, which it's kind of been bugging me for a while. So we're gonna, first of all, the topic is boundaries, okay? And I was looking for a hook to make you laugh at the beginning, and I went and Googled the best boundary jokes online. And can I just tell you, there are no good boundary jokes. They were all cornered. There's this one really inappropriate one about a fence and a wife, and I'm not even going to go there. If you wanted to look it up, you can, because it's really off color, but it's the only one that made me laugh. But I'd probably be embarrassed to repeat it here. So there's that. But see, maybe I did make you laugh. I don't know. But we're here today to talk about a topic that I think is really, really important. And the topic is boundary. So a lot of people might think that boundary could be a dirty word, so to speak. It's like, oh, she's got rigid boundaries. That one has too many boundaries. I've even heard some people have their businesses with a name of something adhering to boundaries. And, the episode after this is going to cover kind of the opposite of boundaries. We're going to talk about balance and anti-perfectionism. And I don't want you to get turned off by that, because I think I have a very interesting, realistic, applicable twist on that. And it's definitely not an overused topic, although I think saying that people are not perfect or saying that people are perfect is very popular on social media. But anyways, I digress. Let's get back to boundaries, because there are some times when that expression, drawing a line in the sand, for example, or having a bright line, is very appropriate. And then there's times where it doesn't serve you at all. So this week, in this episode, we're going to talk about times when boundaries are very necessary and they do serve you well. So I want you to think of a boundary as a personal property line. And that's the context I'm going to keep it in today, so that it's actually, when you think of like your circle of trust, your circle of what you allow and don't allow into your life in order to keep your psychological and emotional life sane. That's what we're talking about today. So that's why I want to say that boundaries in this context are not a dirty word. Okay? They are actually a system for sticking to what you will allow and what you will not allow. So it doesn't make you mean. In fact, you can set your own personal limits, aka expectations, aka boundaries, and still be very kind. So I like to point that out. It doesn't make you a bitch to have boundaries, even though some people might take offense with that. So boundaries are a part of your decision to set and enforce how you want to live your life. Again, it's a personal property line. I love that expression. And here's the thing. If other people don't agree, that's on them. It's not your burden. And just saying that and knowing that, maybe you have to write that in your journal. If other people don't agree with your boundaries, that's on them and it's not your burden. So I want you all to remember that, all right? That came up at minute 5 in this podcast in case you want to tell anyone. All right, so what do boundaries sound like? If you want some examples of what I'm talking about in real life, this is my favorite one. Okay, because I've gotten a lot of flack on it, even from perfect strangers on vacation. My favorite boundary is my food choices are not up for discussion. Period. Ooh, I like that one. And here's my other very, very favorite one. My body is not up for discussion. Period. And here's something I want to remind you to never, ever, ever say to anyone, you look great, how much weight have you lost? Because you know what? What if someone in their family just died and they are so depressed that they don't have an appetite? And now you've just kind of reinforced that. Or what if they're struggling with an eating disorder, right? Where they maybe don't eat or maybe they binge and purge. So you have to be very careful when you give out compliments. So that's again an aside. Another one is, you look tired today. Well, again, my body is not up for discussion. You know what? I think that's very insensitive to look at someone and say that. And I've had people say that to me. And it's been, I'm like, oh yeah, well, I forgot to put makeup on today if it's any of your business, and thinking to myself. But when I was younger, if someone said that to me, that would have ruined my day. Like, oh my God, I look like shit. I'm kind of over that now that I'm in midlife and definitely have had a little experience under my belt. But, the point is, we don't need to comment on other people's bodies. Find something else to compliment people on. Like, I really like the way you handled that situation with that angry service person, or I really like the way you handled that situation with that person next to you in the car who had road rage, example, things like that. All right, so here's another great boundary example. I don't blank, and you can fill in the blank. I don't drink. I don't go to XYZ events. I don't go to cemeteries. That's true for me. I don't go to cemeteries because if you ever want to ask me about it, that's fine. But I think life is for the living, and I prefer to remember my loved ones in their living state versus staring at their gravestone. That's just a personal pet peeve of mine. But I once got ridiculed by an elderly aunt who told me that I ought to be ashamed of myself. And this is a quote, I ought to be ashamed of myself because have I looked at my parents' grave lately and no one has been tending to it. And I'm like, I just didn't answer. I don't go to cemeteries. So, period. I mean, and I don't care if anyone else does and they want to make a beautiful shrine to whoever their loved one was, so be it. That's fine. I don't go to cemeteries. Anyways, let's move on. Another one, I don't vote a certain way. So I think you're getting the point. There's a few more that I would like to bring up, a few more boundaries, examples, because I think it could give you some thoughts about maybe, are there areas in your life where you need to set boundaries? One of the things is people love to ask me if I'm busy, and I like to say I'm just as busy as I want to be. And that works really well, especially when people are going to ask me to give of my time when I don't want to. I just say, I'm just as busy as I want to be. Thank you very much for thinking of me, period. That's a boundary, right? So a couple other examples. I will leave if it compromises my mental health. And this is a wonderful boundary, I think, for all of us. If you get in a situation that you feel like is going to compromise you in any way, shape, or form, and you need to let someone know ahead of time, go for it. That's what I say. Another one is, I'm not in a place that I can talk. That ends the conversation. Another way to end a conversation that you don't want to deal with, or a problem that you don't want to deal with right now. And I think a lot of people have this issue with signing off, people that work from home and signing off for their workday is, I will respond to this on Monday. You know, if it's over the weekend or if it's after hours, I will respond to this on my next workday, period. This is something that I think is because the lines of being at work and not at work are getting blurred quite a bit. And there are some people that I know who are do so well with this, and others who are just like always available, and you can see the stress in their lives. And I used to always respond to every text right away. And now I'm like, you know what? If I'm doing something with my family or whatever, I don't have to respond to that right away. The text will still be there in a few hours. You know, it's not life or death. So, I mean, I don't deal in, emergencies. So we can do that, right? Anyways, and most of us don't, unless you're in healthcare and you are a physician who deals in emergencies. Anyways, okay. All right. This is another one. Especially when someone makes a remark that you don't like, you can just look at them and say, that wasn't funny, it was offensive. And that kind of lets people know your boundaries of what you will and will not accept, So, and my favorite and last one that I'm going to just chat about here really quick is no means no. That's it. You don't have to explain. You don't have to say why. End of conversation. So the thing is, I think in order to be healthy, to have a healthy emotional outlook and psychological outlook on pretty much anything, and to help keep your stress levels at bay, you need to decide what your personal property line, where it is, what your personal boundaries are, and you need to stick to them. And a lot of us, and I've been very guilty of this in the past, want to be people pleasers. And I like to think of myself as a recovering people pleaser. It's not that I don't want to make people happy, but not at the expense of blurring my boundaries. One of the boundaries that I broke on my own and didn't work out well for me was that I know that my niche of training people well is the midlife female niche. I train midlife women. And I have had people ask me over the last 13 years, can you train my teenage son? Can you train my teenage daughter? Can you train my husband? Can I use your name to refer out to men? No, no, and more no. Anytime I have done this, it has not worked out. And, I've gotten myself into, and it's my own fault. It's not that I can't do it, but I've chosen not to excel in those categories. And I'm much more comfortable researching and training midlife women. So it has to be a hard, fast boundary. And I have had to eat my words on that a number of times. And I'm sorry to say I've made that mistake more than once. So I'm here to tell you, don't make these mistakes more than once. Take some time. This is, if you like to journal or if you have some quiet time, hey, in the Northeast here, the weather's about to get really crappy, and we're about to have some time, a little bit more time inside than what we've had the past wonderful months that we've had a wonderful summer. But my point is, if you get some quiet time on a rainy day, which is going to be really easy, pick up a pen and paper and think about what you want your personal boundaries to be. What will you absolutely not tolerate? And this is where you can have that line in the sand. In fact, where you need to have that personal property line. So I implore you to go ahead and actually think about this. Get your boundaries set in your brain. And I love to spill it all out on paper and get it out of my head, because then I know it's there. And I'm telling you, I think that you will feel a lot better. And this is something that alone can really help your stress level. And we're all about moderating our stress levels. And so that's the kind of stress that you can actually prevent. Not every stress we can prevent, but this is one of those things where you can have the courage to change these things if you want to, right? Versus some other kinds of stress where You can't change the situation, so you just have to learn to deal with it and react to it in a way that doesn't give you any more anxiety. So that's what I got today. Next week, we're going to talk about the anti-perfect life and why it is so appealing. So listen, I hope this helped you today. Stick to your personal boundaries. And by the way, this is fall, and of course it's political time of year. And so I will just let you know right now, I do not get involved in any political discussions in the gym and in social media. I just won't go there with anyone. And I love that you have an opinion politically. I do too, and that's a boundary that I have. I'll keep mine to myself, and you can keep yours to yourself. And I will continue to respect the fact that you do have an opinion and that you are allowed to express it. It's just that we aren't going to go there in our Grateful Fitness gym, and I don't go there on social media. All right, ta-ta for now. I will see you next week back on the Air Hug Community Podcast. Thank you, thank you, thank you for listening. And please do me a favor and subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you're listening. And if you have a minute, go ahead and give me a 5-star rating. It really means a lot to me to have ratings, and Apple and Spotify love 5-star ratings, and it really helps to get podcasts more searchable on these platforms. All right, bye.